You're listening to SBNation Radio. This is the Tony D Show.
All right, so the NBA playoffs, we are going to be moving along now. I know the first week it takes a long time to get all the teams on TV and get it moving, but we've got some compelling matchups. Spencer Davies joins us from BasketballInsiders.com to help us break down what we are going to be seeing for the next couple of weeks, at least in the first round. How are you, Spencer?
Good, Tony. Just getting ready for the postseason, you know.
I know, it's fantastic. In the Eastern Conference, I know Cleveland struggled a bit and they didn't get the number one overall seed. Is there any surprises here? Is there anybody that is not in the right spot?
I wouldn't say so. I am kind of surprised that Chicago did hang on and make that eighth seed. I thought Miami was really going to get in there, and unfortunately weekers didn't allow that to happen, but they persevered throughout the season, and Jimmy Butler really carried them. So we'll see what they can do against Boston.
All right, what are we getting from a Bulls team, though, against the Celtics? What kind of team will show up in this playoff series with Boston?
Well, they've been playing really well. As I said before, Jimmy Butler is really carrying the load. It's kind of a little bit of an overachieving team right now, but the fact that they, mustered up the strength to get there is I think, huge in itself, especially without the services of Dwayne Wade. Like Niko Mirotic is having a good season here at the end of the year. And I think it's going to be a little closer than most think with the Celtics, but obviously Boston will pull out.
All right, let's go to the Cavaliers now, because the lot's been made of their recent struggles and what's going on with them and all of the things that they've been fighting through their regular season. But we always say with Cleveland, there's this extra gear because they have LeBron and so. But is there a concern here? Is some of that stuff that we were talking about with the Cavaliers, is it really transferable in the postseason? Is there a concern with the Cavs?
Well, I'll tell you that in Cleveland there certainly is. It's something about this team that it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So it really just depends on what team shows up in the playoffs. But history tells me that LeBron James gets these guys in order. They did just sign a couple of new players with Dante Jones and Eddie Tavares in exchange for DeAndre Liggins and Larry Sanders, who they waived both this week. It's not they're going to play a huge role in the playoffs, but Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love with LeBron, they're going to have to play defense. But the good thing about the matchup they drew with Indiana is I feel like those two kind of mirror each other in the fact that neither of them play defense, but they can score a lot of points. And I think the matchup with Paul George is going to be a very entertaining one.
What do you think of the Raptors and the Bucks? These are teams nationally probably don't get as much exposure as others, but are really surging at the right time. What do you see in this 3-6?
Well, the Raptors won 12 out of their last 14 games. They've been playing really good basketball. DeMar DeRozan had to carry the load for them while Kyle Lowry was out, but now that they have him back, and they're hitting their stride at the right time, and I think this is a real team that has a chance to get out of the East, honestly. But they do draw a tough matchup with the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo. They're also playing some really good basketball, so I wouldn't be surprised if the winner of that matchup, if they get Cleveland, that they could actually give them a run for their money to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, how good are the Bucks? We were talking about them earlier this week, and they're a fun team. But again, I have to admit, I don't watch them all the time, and I know with Giannis I should. But in terms of the Bucks as a 6 seed, I mean, they're really surging at the right time.
They are. A lot of people don't notice what they have outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo, though. I mean, in mid-February, they got back Chris Middleton. He's one of the best 3-and-D players in the entire league. Greg Monroe's really giving them a nice punch off the bench for them. Tony Snell also playing a really good role. But also, their rookie Thon Maker has really stepped up in this month. And I know that there's a lot of teams that are resting players and that are getting their younger guys more experience, but Thon Maker's really been playing well for them. And it's going to bode well for them going into the playoffs because this is a kid who also hasn't had any experience. And a lot of these guys on the Bucks haven't had much experience, but they're playing well at the right time, and that should make for a really interesting series between them and Toronto. But like I said, the winner of that matchup facing the winner of Cleveland and Indiana, I think, has a real shot at getting to the Eastern Conference Finals.
All right, due to times, let's jump over to the West, and let's go to the San Antonio Spurs. They're another team that, all right, they're limping down the stretch, and Popovich knows how to coach this team in the postseason, but they've had some postseason surprises where they've lost series they should have won. In terms of what Memphis can bring, are we seeing a challenging series here, and what do you see out of Spurs Grizzlies?
Well, it's a rematch from last year. Memphis, they are also a very, very inconsistent team. But they have their core four that has been to the dance every time. Mike Conley, Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, Tony Allen, all those guys. They know what's at stake here in the playoffs. Vince Carter included, too. Can't forget that. But the Spurs, we all know how well they play. They're a well-oiled machine. They are at full health. They've got Pau Gasol back. He just hit the 20,000-point mark last night. Yeah. LaMarcus Aldridge is fine. Kawhi Leonard is playing some really good basketball. So that should be a pretty decent series, but I ultimately think the Spurs will win that one in about 5 games.
Rockets and Thunder, everyone's talking about the MVP battle and the matchup between Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Those guys can play great, but in the end, does Oklahoma have anything else that makes this series more compelling other than those two stars going at each other?
I think the key factor here is going to be Steven Adams versus Clint Capella, very similar players. I think that second chance opportunities will be huge for the Thunder, especially against the Rockets team that gets up and down the floor very, very fast, as we all know. And as well, Victor Oladipo, too, is going to have to play a huge role for the Thunder because I'm assuming that they're just going to crowd on Russell Westbrook the entire series. But it'll be fun to see that MVP matchup, and I think that's the number one thing they're going to focus on while watching these two teams go at it. I think this one will go to 6, but Houston will come out.
Do you like these up-tempo, fast teams that score a lot in terms of the Rockets? I don't know how they get identified, but that really are lax on the defensive end. Do they do well, or they historically do well? Because I remember those Steve Nash Sun teams never made the finals.
Right, yeah, and that will be something to look out for. Can they actually sustain it without putting that focus on the defensive end? But there's something about this Rockets team that is just so dangerous that they play fast and then they force you to play their game. Other teams are speeding up and kind of, playing that rapid pace and taking bad shots and speeding it up and playing their pace. And that's really to the advantage of the Rockets if they get you to play their style. Now, if that doesn't happen and Oklahoma City does go in this half-court mode, then that would favor the Thunder. So it just really depends on how the other team reacts to that fast pace.
All right, I got a minute, but I want to get your thoughts on the Jazz and Clippers. We know the Clippers act. We've seen that a number of times. With the Jazz, how good is Utah?
I love Utah. I think that's the sneakiest team in the Western Conference, and I think they could really give Golden State a fight for their money if they get past the Clippers, which I think they will because Rudy Gobert is just having an absolute monster season. I just wrote an article on him. He's my defensive player of the year, but also offensively, he's just been excellent. And he's in the top 10 in ESPN's real plus minus. And you've got Gordon Hayward also can get a chance to play a huge role for them. So I think that's a really good matchup with the Clippers, actually, because they're playing some pretty good ball. But I think Utah wins that one in about 6.
All right, Spencer Davis, again, basketballinsiders.com. Great stuff. Hope to have you on again as we continue this long trek towards June. Appreciate it, my man.
Sounds good, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Spencer Davies, again, basketballinsiders.com. Yeah, there's some teams, and I mentioned this earlier. Look, I don't get to watch everything, but I want to watch enough. And I love bouncing around on the season package at night, especially late. That's the one thing I like, when my family goes to bed and everybody's getting ready for the big next day, and I can sit and just peruse and bounce to Utah to watch the Jazz a little bit, or Portland to watch the Trailblazers. I've been watching a little too much Portland lately. I don't know why. I love Damian Lillard, and I always loved the whole Rip City concept, but I don't know why I've been focusing on Portland. I don't think I have a chance in their first game against Golden State, but nevertheless, the Jazz have been really intriguing because, again, he wrote an article about the Jazz. People have been really talking about Gobert and Jordan Hayward. This is a team that can really make some noise out of a 5 seed in the West. I don't know how far it goes, but it's interesting to see where it may be taking us.